right. Setting up our meeting in Facebook. We are now streaming in Facebook. Excellent. Yeah, thank you all. It's always a little tricky when we go from Zoom to Facebook Live, knowing exactly when we're live and when things are still behind the scenes. So welcome everyone. We are here today with the fabulous Jenn Shull, who is from Charlotte, North Carolina. And I was recently introduced to Jenn by a mutual friend, Deanne, who's very involved in this group, and found that she is just a fabulous person and also has a lot to share along the lines of yoga and mindset. She is a coach and a yoga teacher. So let me just read, I'm going to introduce you, Jenn.
Awesome.
I'm just going to read a little bit of an introduction of a bio. So Jenn Shull is MARYT 200, is a mindset coach and yoga teacher. She is a professionally trained ontological life and leadership coach with a background in behavioral psychology, criminal justice, neuroscience, counseling, therapy, and yoga. Holy moly, she knows a lot. Jenn focuses on creating a safe space for her clients and students to feel seen and heard so they can shift their mindset, adjust their narrative, and reach their bold vision. So, Jenn, we need people like you more now than ever. So thank you for being on the show, whatever this show is turning into.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, I'm calling it Inspirational Interviews. So can you just start by sharing a little bit about what the practice of yoga is to you?
Yes, I would love to. So, I don't know if this came from an immersion I took or a teacher training, but one of my teachers, when they were kind of just, having us read the readings, giving us all the information, I remember them telling us what the definition of yoga actually meant. And, I kind of took that, and then like everything else, I think it just kind of becomes more our own. And I think the cool thing is, Hannah, if you were to invite me back in like a year, let's just say, and you ask me the same question, it might have a different answer, right? Because yoga is evolutionary. But the definition that they gave us was that yoga is to yoke. Yoga is to unite, which I'm sure you know, but not everyone in the group may know. And so, when I got that definition, I'm always looking at how can I be as connected as possible to my breath, to my body. And it's kind of interesting with the mind because I'm trying to actually lose the mind when I'm in my yoga, and then actually be aligned with the divine. Because I find for me, when I'm yoking, when I'm uniting, it's really a beautiful formula to just kind of get the stress response out of the way and have the nervous system say, hey, I can receive all the messages now. And I'm channeling all of, the goodness. So for me, it's really about yoking, it's connecting. And, where I really like to take it is saying, and how can I make that yoking, that connection from the internal world and the external world on the mat to off the mat?
Yes.
That's where I'm most interested for myself. Because that's what I personally, when I was a new yogi, that's what I struggled with the most. So that's always where it hits my heart.
Great. So how does mindset play into that?
For me personally, when I started my yoga practice, like so many, I started to notice differences right away, particularly in my Shavasana. When I laid there and cried and I was like, wow, you don't really know stillness. You don't rest that much. Wow. And so the reason why I started taking yoga was because I had been in a significant car accident when I moved to North Carolina. I broke the left pubic bone on my pelvis and I collapsed my lung. And so, like many, I started the practice because it was almost like I had to, really. And I remember just seeing all the other yogis and yoga students, and I noticed that there was something that they seemed to be getting from their practice up here that I was not getting. And, I would go and I would have this great experience. And then pretty quickly after I leave the mat, leave the studio, my mindset was nowhere near where it was when I was in there, and I couldn't keep it. So I started realizing, like, there's a mindset to yoga, and something is happening where I can't hold on to it when I leave. And so you and I will kind of let the conversation evolve the way it needs to. But where I'll start with that is, I like to dig in the mindset work that I do, like trace it back to the root, right? And I realized that I was going in with a mindset that I needed yoga to fix me and fix what was wrong with me. And so what I learned when I started my coaches training was, oh, I'm going into my yoga with a mindset that I'm not enough. And so when you are trying to fix your not enoughness, it's just not a powerful place to come from. So that's when I realized that my mindset of yoga wasn't set up for me to actually go that deep with my practice.
Yeah. Yeah. I talk a lot about Spanda, especially in the program that I teach, the Vitality Circle, which is that concept of expansion and contraction. And when we're in a contracted place, we can't receive. Right. And so it sounds like that's exactly where you were. Like, you were showing up being like, I'm not enough, but I need to heal. But there wasn't that expansion of like, and I welcome what I don't know, or I welcome this journey, this wisdom, right? And that's such a great example. So I'm curious, like, what made the shift for you? Like, now you've dived deep into studying yoga and mindset, and now are teaching other people. So what made you shift from being like, oh, I'm not getting what other people are getting, to I'm here to deeply dive and to share it with other people?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I will say, I have found that for myself personally, and I think this is true for a lot of us humans, we haven't really been taught very much about our operating system or our nervous system. And, yoga gets into those things a lot. And so, I had a few different stages, I would say, where I started to kind of pivot. But one thing that really helped was I do well when I can understand more about the process. And let me say this is loosely, right? Because some of these processes that are transformational, we can't fully understand until maybe we've been in them for a while and we're like, oh, I get it. But one thing that I started doing right away was, how can I be taking workshops with teachers who really are into the sacredness of yoga, the philosophy of yoga, the Ayurvedics of yoga, more than just what was going on in the room. And then that led me to immersions. And then that led me to saying, I don't know if I'm going to teach, but I want to go on the journey to become a teacher. And right when I was doing that, it's so funny how, spirit, the universe works. Right when I had started my teacher training for yoga, I had been presented with the opportunity to go through a coaching and leadership training. And, like, I think anyone who's watching this video can relate. Sometimes when we've been stuck and we start to maybe take one step or move something away, it can happen fast. And so all of a sudden I find myself in a coaching and leadership training. And I want to go back to where you introduced me and said ontological, because someone listening might be like, Onta, what? What is she doing? Ontological coaching is, ontology is the study of being. So ontological coaching is really saying, hey, we're going to start over here and look at, who are you being? How are you showing up? What is your relationship to yourself? What is your relationship to yoga, to time, to money, all of that kind of stuff, right? It's very like, if anyone studied like Aristotle or Plato, it's very much like that, but it's also very much like yoga,
Mhm.
right? And so when I started getting in, got some hair sticking to my shoulder. When I started getting into my training, they were very clear with, we're giving you your own coach for the full year you're in this program, because you're going to become great coaches, not by learning how to coach, but by being coached and having your own transformation. And so, you know, I'm in this yoga training and I'm in this coaching training, and you can't make this stuff up, right? Like, every reading and thing I got in the yoga training was parallel with what was going on in the coaching training. And so I'm getting the same messages from everywhere, and I'm getting to receive it in my body. But as you may have learned, because I was blocked, I kind of lived in my head, right? And so what I felt like right off the bat with my coach was, you're like a yoga teacher for my mind. And it was helping me, because of the nature of the coaching style, it was helping me unpack yoga philosophy in the middle of coaching conversations. And so that's where I really had my personal breakthrough with, what does yoga mean to me? What has my relationship to the practice been thus far? Is it serving me? What do I want it to be? And that was where I had the big shift.
Great. Yeah. And you say coaching is like yoga for the mind, which I love that statement, because yeah, yoga, that concept of to yoke or unite, to bring together, can happen in many, many different ways, right? It doesn't just look one way. And
because you know, as we keep learning more, we just get to see new things. And so, you know, coaching is very like, let's unpack what's in here, let's make sense of it. And so I've gotten my first level training for yoga therapy. And you know, for anyone who's not clear on yoga therapy is a little bit different, where you're going to be put in poses, and the yoga therapist is not going to be unpacking it with you in conversation. They want you to be quiet, they want you to be still, they want you to be journaling. And so that's what I was getting, you know, with my yoga practice, was more the stillness, more the quiet, more the journaling. But because I'm kind of an analytical person, I also needed what coaching provides. I needed to unpack what was going on in my practice. I needed to understand why in some things I was like, oh my gosh, I'm on my mat and I'm mad as a hornet right now. What's going on? Because what I was doing was I was judging myself. I was making up stories that I was a bad person and I wasn't kind. And I was looking around the room at all the yogis and I was like, look at them. They're like so serene. And I'm over here like angry. And
right. Yeah. I bet a lot of people can relate to that. Like
I think so.
ourselves being like, I'm so screwed up. Everybody else is fine. Right.
I would walk into the yoga studio and be like, one day maybe I'll be like everybody else. And then when I got into it, I was like, we're all just coming to the mat for the same reason.
Yeah.
We all have stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And that space can be found on the mat. Like the conversation can happen with the breath and the movement and the flow, instead of trying to just, it's that spanda again, right? Like if you just hunker down and be like, I can't figure this out, or I'm not worthy, or I'm not good, or whatever it is.
Yeah, but it was a lot about too, like, you know, it was a lot about performance. You know, I'd be in my head and I'd have the thoughts of, I'm doing way better than that person. And then I was like, oh my gosh, you're a jerk on your mat. You know, and like, you know, like if we're just in warrior, like, how can I be as rigid as possible in this pose? And like all performance. And so it was almost like when I was getting on the mat, I was trying to prove something to myself and everybody else. And going back to the spanda, I wasn't allowing the divine sacred experience that could have been happening.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It wasn't my time at that time.
Right. Yeah. So talk to me a little bit just about this idea of being mentored. Like both of us are coaches in our own spaces, and we are also both very aware of the need to continue being mentored, right? Like once you, even when you become a mentor, you still need to be mentored.
Oh, even more.
Yes. Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about like the need to keep learning and to stay in the growth process.
Oh, I would love that. So I'll give a couple different examples because these are questions people ask me. Jenn, you're a yoga teacher. Why do you always go to everyone else's classes? And I was like, that's a great question because I noticed a lot of other teachers weren't. They were practicing on their own. They were practicing while writing classes. And so I didn't know right away. And I said, when it comes to being mentored and being a student and being taught in yoga or yoga training, I said, it's a space where I can let go and trust that someone else has the wheel. They're going to guide me. They're going to extend invitations to me. I don't have to think. And so it's a little bit of a different way I'd explain it with coaching. But when I was trained in coaching, one of the things they said to us was, we want to extend the invitation that each of you has your own coach the whole time you're coaching others. And I think the reason is, particularly if you're doing some of the deeper types of things with people, we can do all of our own work and have our own breakthroughs till the end of time. But when you get into that space with someone else, they can almost invite your stuff to come back and get bigger again. So one of the reasons why I do it is I need the space to just let go and let someone support me so I don't have to control or think or do or create. But then also with coaching, it's like, I got to make sure that I am staying in my highest elevated truth so that I can go in and be that judgment-free reflection for someone else. Mm-hmm. And ask questions that aren't rooted in agenda, but rooted in true curiosity. And, the stuff that we all get mentored on and coached on, the neural pathway never goes, there's a neuroscience, right? The neural pathway never goes away. What happens is we just get better at saying, oh, I'm doing that thing that's not working for me. I'm going to step out of it. And then we learn how to stay out of it for longer, and we learn how to get out of it faster. But that pathway is never there. And so when you get around other people who particularly have similar flavors, it's here, kitty, kitty, kitty. Your stuff wants you to get back into it and go back down the rabbit hole of ego and survival. And so for me, it's truly, I would say, all the reasons I said. And it's absolutely my commitment to my clients. Mm-hmm. Yes. To say, I'm doing the work alongside of you, and we meet as co-creators, and I'm not an expert. I might be an expert in these fields, but you're the expert of you. And so together, we're just going to explore that, and let's have some fun because we take ourselves way too seriously.
Yeah. Great. So you had also said, just coming back to the yoga piece, that yoga has been a huge part of your life since 2010, when you realized you didn't know how to slow down and that you were killing yourself with stress. Yes. And I think that's an awareness that probably many people have when they come to a yoga practice or a mindfulness practice. And I'm curious how let's bring that into the present day. So 2020, and we're dealing with coronavirus and racial injustice and lots of other things, right? Unemployment, a lot of frustration, a lot of uncertainty, which creates stress. Yeah. And so having that perspective of like, okay, that's where you were 10 years ago. And now you're in this coaching space where you're helping other people kind of uncover what their truth is.
Mhm.
And what are your thoughts right now on stress or our evolution with using the tools of yoga right now at this point in time?
I personally think that yoga is one of the best tools that we can be using. And if we break it down, why, let's just start with breath. The number
Mhm.
one thing that happens when you are stressed is you constrict your breath. We're already shallow breathers in this country. So some of us experience more stress than we have to just because the breath isn't as deep as it could be, and so in yoga, we get the built-in pranayama, right? We get the breath work. And so when we come to our mat, even if some of us don't have toolkits to where we can shut the stress off the mat, because some friends of mine made a really good point where they said, I was getting down on myself and I said, I'm not able to turn this off the way I usually can. And they said, Jen, you are great at dealing with more like story and irrational fear. There's stuff to be afraid of right now, and I was like, oh my gosh, you're right, there is. So even if we are, some of us watching this, we might be saying, but what do I do? Like, I don't know how I'm going to pay the bills. I did lose my job. At least we know when we get to the mat, we have at least an hour or whatever of our day where we're focusing on our breath. So we're getting all that old stagnant breath out and we're getting new breath in. And we need the energy richness for the mind to create. We need to move the body for the thoughts to move. And I'm always, because I'm doing the neuroscience piece with it, I'm looking at what's going on in the brain. And most of us right now are probably having to pivot in some way, shape, or form. And so stress usually says, I don't have time to do anything but what's going on right now. And that's survival, right? But when we can step out and come to the mat and connect to breath and move the body and get into the heart and get out of the mind and channel spirit, that's the best chance we have to be pivoting, to be creating, to be maybe bringing something like, hey, I really love an answer universe on my yoga mat. And, I think that's exactly why most yoga teachers, as soon as stuff went down, said, how can I keep serving? How can I offer it for free? In a time where we need yoga most, we have to be sharing it. So it's one of the top tools that I have been using myself and that I've been inviting clients and friends and family to step into.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I do a lot of breath work in the classes that I teach. And so folks watching here are like, yes, there's lots of breath. And it shifts energy unlike anything else. And I talk about it as being medicine, right? It's
because what stress does is I was really blessed when I quit my job and got into my own business. I worked in a wellness center with he is a chiropractor, he's a coach, he does a lot of energy work, a lot of breath, acupuncture, and I learned a lot from him. And so what I really learned working from him is stress will hands down get in the way of your ability to channel the divine. It absolutely will.
Right. It's a separator, not a connector.
Yep. And so I kind of think when we go to our mat, it's sacred, it's divine. And, whatever anyone's flavor is while they're listening, I've learned to just talk to however clients talk. If they're God, I say God. If they're universe, I say universe. If they're not, I'm like consciousness, quantum field. But, whatever our belief is, it really does rely upon a healthy nervous system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yoga will provide that.
Yeah. Would you be willing to share with us one or two practices that are your favorites, go-tos for calming the nervous system?
Yeah. I always start with breath because if you look at breath is the thing that if we're without, we die the quickest, right?
Yeah.
That tells us all we need to know right there. That's our prana. That's our life force.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan, which probably a lot of people know if they're in your class, I'm a big fan of alternate nostril breathing, our Nadi Shodhana.
Yeah.
And what I love about it is not only does it let us breathe deeply, but it's balancing out the brain hemispheres, right? So, if we're getting stuck in our fear, we might be like, I'm in analyzer mode. I can't create. And so just the blending of the hemispheres are going to help in addition to that. And I would say for me that my second tool is the second quickest way I've learned to shift my state is by music and dance.
Mm, yes.
By music and
Yeah.
dance.
Powerful.
And sometimes I will even be getting into yoga poses and dancing in my yoga poses while I'm dancing.
Yeah. Yeah. It can be incorporated, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have had a question come in, which starts with a little sharing. So this is from Kathleen, who is in the Vitality Circle, the program that I run. And she says, I recently started doing yoga during COVID social isolation. I became overwhelmed by trying to keep up. Of course, I have never done yoga in the same space with others, but still had this feeling. So now repeat the same session every day. Yeah, so she started just watching the same class that I offer. And she, or one of the classes from a while ago, she watches it every day. So she says, I'm changing and able to do more physically. I am also emotional after practice sometimes. I find pain, discomfort sits in the same place every day. I am intrigued by this off the mat thing you are talking about. How do I help that happen?
So, one, you're starting off exactly where you need to be. And I love that you're giving yourself grace because let's be real, right? A lot of these faster flow practices, you have to learn to be able to do it. It's like a choreographed dance almost, right? But I would say places to start taking it off the mat. I'm trying to think because I think for each person, this could be really customized. But I would really look at what is the thing that's calling you to your mat, because you're probably seeking to create the same thing off the mat. I think that's why we go to the mat. And so I love this so much that I actually do a 2-hour workshop in Charlotte when we're not having COVID called Yoga Off the Mat, where we bring in coaching and yoga and all of it. But some of the things that I have the students do are I have them start looking at the parallels between their yoga practice and their life. What's your breath like on your mat? What's your breath like off your mat? How are you being with yourself in poses? Because life is just one big asana movement, right? How are you being with yourself off? Start noticing the parallels of how your practice is on and off. Start notice how you respond to things that are happening on and off. And that's I think where I would leave you. I could keep going, but I think with this stuff, less is more. Less is more.
That's a great place to start.
And I think we can all attest to, once we do yoga and all this transformation, the complexity really does lie in the simplicity.
Yeah.
It's complex stuff going on, right? But when we can actually simplify it so much that we're like, nothing's happening, that's usually where we get the most magic.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Thank you. I hope
Yeah,
that's
that was a
helpful.
great question.
Yeah, fabulous. So we're coming to the end of our time here. Wow, 30 minutes flew by.
I know, doesn't it?
It's great talking with you, though. Tell us where people can find you and what you have to offer folks if they're interested in learning more about you or exploring how they can work with you.
You can find me on Instagram. I think if you Google my name, it doesn't come up, but if you just Google the bold thing, it'll come up. Instagram's going to be getting exciting soon. I'm actually working with a branding person to make some changes. So what you see if you go there now is not going to be what you see in the next couple of weeks here. But I do post on there. I'm very active in stories across all the boards. If anyone does appreciate newsletters, you can sign up on there too. But if there's people who aren't on Instagram, because I realize we're all in different places, just go to my website, The Bold Thing, And you can email me from there. If you're more of a one-on-one person, you can reach out with questions. You can sign up for the newsletter. And I'm in the middle right now of creating kind of some new stuff, because I had a bunch of retreats planned and in-person workshops that we can't do. And so I've actually kind of started backing up a little bit to see what do people really need right now. Because I don't think people want to do more workshops and retreats on Zoom when they're getting tired.
Yeah.
So a lot of, I'm kind of, we'll say, pregnant with possibility. So I'm going to be birthing some new programs soon. So I think the best thing to do would be just start following, start watching, and just see what's going on now, and reach out and let me know if any of it resonates with you.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here and sharing your knowledge um, and love of what you've learned with this community. And so, yeah, I hope everybody will check out Jenn, the Bold Thing, both on Instagram and just as a website, the Bold Thing. And yeah, I look forward to seeing what you do.
Oh, me
What
too.
comes next out of your world of the sea of possibilities. Yeah. So thanks so much for being here, Jenn. It's been a pleasure talking with you and learning from you today. And we'll see if people, as they're watching later, have questions, and maybe we'll follow up with you.
Yeah, that
with
sounds
those.
great. I would love that.
Okay. Thanks. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much. You too. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.